It is not working. We always have to be honest with ourselves, and we have to accept the truth. And the truth is, what we are doing in cybersecurity is not working. Now, it did work in the past, but here's the problem. Attackers have evolved and changed on how they're targeting and going after companies and individuals. But our general tactics and methods of cybersecurity haven't. In essence, and I'm as guilty, so I'm pointing the finger at myself. These videos are as much for me as they are for anybody else. But the reality is, we've stopped playing the game as good as the attackers. Cybersecurity is a game of leapfrog. And if you've ever played leapfrog, the objective is not to leap over the person in front of you. The objective is to get as far in front as you can, to make the next leap for the person behind you as hard and as difficult as possible. And what I'm referring to in cybersecurity is, as I've discussed in many other videos, 100% security doesn't exist. Which means every system, every technology, every piece of software is going to have vulnerabilities that are exploitable. We're never going to be able to remove all vulnerabilities. We're never going to be able to make any functional system 100% secure. So our goal is to make it as hard for the adversary as possible. Our goal is to leap over the adversary when they find a weakness and make it very difficult for them to exploit weaknesses in the future. So the way this works is we're going in and we put out a system that we believe is as hard to break into as possible. And then we put it out there and we monitor. Then the attacker comes along, pounds away at it, and will eventually find a way in. Every system is exploitable. Every system can be broken into. We have to just make it as hard and as difficult as possible. So then the attacker leaps over us and finds a way to break in. Our job then is to find a way to secure or protect it and leap back over them. But what has happened is the attacker has become very good at this game, and we've basically forgot we're playing a game. We forgot that we're exploitable. We need to embrace the breach and not be afraid of it. So let me give an example. I was over in Australia giving a keynote. And typically with Australian flights, the way they work is they're later in the day. So I gave the keynote in the morning and my flight wasn't till that evening. And I'm always about learning. So I decided to sit in the event and listen to the other presenters. And it just happened right after me was a panel discussion. So the moderator of the panel went to each of the panelists and said, why don't you introduce yourself? Why don't you introduce yourself so people can understand your background? And I still remember I'm sitting in the back of the room observing. And the first panelist gets up and proceeds to say that they're a chief information security officer at this company and what they're doing and how they operate and how they function. And then they sort of pause. They start swaying, looking down, sort of feeling very uncomfortable. And they'll sort of look up just a little bit and say, and our company has had 3 breaches over the last 2 years. And it's weird because almost like this sense of anger, frustration, or even disapproval went across the audience. And it was almost like they were ashamed of what they did. Like this person was ashamed that they had multiple breaches in a 2-year period. And it's sort of weird. And I'm like, okay, this is not the right energy. But then it got even weirder. Because then the next person got up. And this person, you can see, had a lot more confidence. And they're given their background and their details and the information. And then they proceed to make a fist, pound it on the podium, and go. And we have not had a single attack or breach in the last 2 years. And everyone's like, yeah, yeah. And it gets into it, and people are cheering, and he's doing like this, yeah. And I'm sitting there in the back of this room, like just can't believe what I'm hearing and seeing. And just to be honest with you, it had to be the most galactically stupidest thing I have ever seen. Why in the world are we cheering somebody who is negligent? Why are we cheering and rewarding bad behavior? Because here's the reality. There is no possibility that a company that is successfully making hundreds of millions of dollars had 0 attacks and 0 breaches in a 2-year period. It's not possible, my friends. It's not. That's not the reality. That person should have been booed off stage. That person should have been fired from their company. But instead, we're rewarding bad behavior. And then the first individual who acted ashamed because of how we responded should have been rewarded and promoted. That's about right. This was medium-sized company, 5 to 600 million, 2 to 3 breaches every couple of years. That's about right. About every 7 to 8 months. That's about right. Now, we could do better, and we should do better, but that's the environment we're in today. Accepting reality. We are in an environment where your systems will get sick about every 7 to 9 months. It shouldn't be that way. To me, my goal when I work with companies is to get your breaches down to about once every 12 to 18 months. And it's weird because when I talk about this, it seems foreign to people, but I love analogies because analogies bring us to truth. And here's the reality. In the real world, we use common sense. But when it comes to cyberspace, common sense goes out the door. Things we would never do in the real world, we do in cyberspace on a regular basis. Example, if I came up to you on the street and you're just walking down the street or you're walking to a restaurant from your car, and I walk up to you fairly aggressively, get pretty close in your face, and I go, give me your name, give me your location, give me your phone number, and I'll give you really cool stuff. I don't think there's anybody that would fall for that. I don't think anybody would give the info. You'd probably be like, dude, you got to chill out, man. You got to step away. You might even pick up your phone trying to call for help or look for things, but you would never give away your information. But you're in cyberspace, you're surfing the web, or you're in social media. and you're just clicking around, and all of a sudden, some site you don't know, some person you've never ever met in your life gets in your face with a message that says, give me your name, your phone number, and your address, and I will give you cool stuff. And we say, okay. That is insane. That doesn't make any sense. Why are we doing that? We need to start making better decisions when it comes to cyberspace. And we need to recognize, based on our current behavioral patterns, you're going to get attacked or get sick every 7 to 9 months. Now, let me give you context. Is there anyone who is the perfect specimen of a human that will never, ever get sick for their entire lives? No! If somebody came up to you and said, I am 100% healthy. I am the perfect specimen of a human. And I'm never, ever going to get sick. You wouldn't cheer for them. You wouldn't applaud them. You wouldn't envy them. You would think they're nuts. If you cared about them, you would try to educate them and be like, dude, that's not real. That's not real. But what happened? Let's go back to my Australian example. You basically had somebody who was delusional that got up on stage and said, I'm never going to get sick. I've never been sick. I never will be sick, and I haven't been sick for the last 2 years. And we cheer them on and encourage that delusional behavior. It needs to stop. When companies bring me in, companies either love me or hate me because I'm a voice of reason. I speak the truth, and I tell them what they don't want to hear. So if you're ready and recognize that you need help in cybersecurity, then companies love and embrace because I provide tremendous value to them. But companies that just want somebody to blow smoke up their you know what and behave in a delusional manner, I'm not your person. Because that's not the truth, and that's not me and how I operate. The reality is, we all get sick. I'm huge into motivation and performance. I'm huge into exercising and eating healthy, and believe that my body is a weapon, and for me to fulfill my purpose on this planet of making cyberspace a safe place to live, work, and raise a family, I must be as healthy as possible. So I believe words are power. And I go in and I don't like using the word sick or illness because I don't want to send that message to my body. So I always say I am healthy and I am whole. But the reality is, we all get sick. Now, here's the trick. The trick is this. There are really 2 general types of people. One are folks that just know they're going to get sick. They get sick as often as they need to, and all they do is focus on response. So they'll go in and they don't take peptides, they don't take vitamins, they don't exercise, they don't do a lot of those things. Not criticizing, it's a decision, and it's okay. And they just recognize, okay, I'm going to get sick, and when I do, I'll go to a doctor, I'll get medicine, and I'll recover. And then there's another group of people, like me, which try to do as much preventive medicine as possible before I go on an airplane. Because let's face it, an airplane is a petri dish. When you go on an airplane, you are in an enclosed space with 150 people. What is the probability that one of them has germs, sick, or a virus? It's almost a guarantee. And then they're recirculating the air. It's airtight. They pressurize the cabin. There's no outside air. Pressurize the cabin. They recirculate the air. So now the question is, in a 5-hour flight, what is the probability that that air will be recirculated to you and you will potentially get someone? It's almost a guarantee. So I know that. And I used to always get sick after I had long flights. But now what do? I try to do preventive medicine. Before a flight, I get IVs where I max out the vitamins. I also do NAD, which just helps with cell regeneration. Be careful, it's a little intense when you do a NAD IV, but I find it's really beneficial. I'm not giving a medical advice here, just sort of giving ideas. But I do an IV before every flight. And then when I come home, I do the same. It's like, but Eric, you're in a foreign city, and guess what? There's amazing services out there that come right to your hotel room. So my assistant, just the night before I fly home, a really nice person comes to my hotel room, I get my IV for a couple hours, and I fly home. But here's the reality. I'm doing what I can to prevent, but even with that, even with taking daily peptides, doing vitamin injections and doing IVs, I still realize that I'm going to get sick. So what do? I look for early signs of an attack. Early signs of an illness. Illness and attack, I just mixed the two together. I look for early signs of an illness and I respond quickly, because here's the reality. The longer you have a virus in you, the worse it's going to get. So if I start feeling a little sick or a little pressure, and I immediately take extra vitamins, I get some antibiotics, I do things, I can reduce the time period of that cold. But if I wait for the symptoms to get really, really worse, you can't deal with it. This is why I get monthly blood work. People think I'm crazy. I probably am. But I get monthly blood work because guess what? The best indication of an illness in your body is your blood will start to change. You'll get elevated blood cells. You'll start to see elevation in the liver or the kidneys before there's ever any symptom. If there's ever symptoms, at that point, the illness has progressed to a point where typically you need an operation. So by going in and getting blood work that often, I can stay ahead of the curve. So my goal with health is not that I'll never get sick. My goal with health is to minimize the frequency in which I get sick and the impact it has on my life. My goal is that if I get sick, I don't miss the gym. I can recover. I might have to do a lighter workout, but I don't impact my daily schedule. That's my goal. Do I always achieve it? No, but that's my goal. And guess what? What makes me different than most cybersecurity professionals and consultants, that's the approach I bring to your business. That's the approach I bring to your life. My goal when I work with you as a company is reality. You're going to get sick. But I'm going to do as much prevention and detection. I'm going to do daily blood work. I'm going to do monthly blood work. I'm going to do daily checks. I'm going to put systems in place where we can detect problems very early. So my goal for your company is not that you'll never get attacked, but it's to minimize the frequency and the impact it has on your business. That's premier level cybersecurity. That is what we need to get to, but we're not there today. We need to think about cybersecurity differently. We need to approach it differently and say, yes, how can we prevent as many things as possible? And in cases where we can, how can we get early detection before their signs, before their symptoms? And by doing that, we can actually completely shift the game of how the adversary is playing. Now, when we're playing leapfrog, I don't leap over one person. I leap over 5. And that's what the adversary has been doing. The reason why the problem has gotten so worse is the adversary said, wait a second, traditional leapfrog, I leap over you, you leap over me. But what the adversary started doing in the last couple of years is going, what if I leap over 10 people? Now we can cause a significant amount of damage and they don't have a fighting chance. And then we just leap over 1. So my approach is when we come in, we're going to leap over 20 attackers. We're going to put such measures in place that minimize the damage and exposure. So when the attacks happen, it's a small amount of money and a small amount of time. It's not what we're seeing today with ransomware and extortion attacks, where companies are down for weeks and paying $5 to $10 million. There is a different way of doing this. There is a new approach to cybersecurity, but you have to be open to listening, and you have to get the right experts like myself in there that understand the new game, understand how attackers work, and can let you run ahead of the attackers.